In this video, we're going to talk about the importance of role models, of having role models and being a role model, and talk about some examples of role models. So you can see the definitions: a person who serves as an example of values, attitudes, and behaviors associated with a role. Um, and you can have role models in different ways: professional, relational, spiritual role models. And of course, this isn't to say that for a person to be a role model, they have to be perfect. If there are some really admirable um, characteristics that they have that can help you put your beliefs, your attitudes into practice and see how to do it, then that can be very helpful. Um, of course, familiarity, proximity, and authenticity of a role model is very important. Um, so if maybe you have a younger sibling and maybe one of your parents is has either passed away or is out of the picture for some reason, and you want to be a role model, for instance, to a younger sibling, well, that you have to be around. I mean, the sibling has to be able to communicate and see you in action, and there has to be some proximity. You also have to be authentic, right? If you tell your younger brother or sister something about how they should live or what they should do, and then you do the opposite, that's not going to be very effective, right? Or it's not that's not going to work. So a couple of role models that I have professionally, and actually I'm very fortunate. There's been many other faculty members, teachers I've known, administrators that I've had the blessing to work with that are really high quality people and have done really nice work. But I'll mention a few here. Uh, one guy's name is his name is Jim. I worked with him for about 30 years, and he was a humanities professor, and we team taught a lot of design courses where um, I would teach the technical part, and he would focus on the writing and or written and oral presentations and ethics. And so, it was I really learned a lot from him. Um, he was an excellent writer, so he helped me learn how to write. He helped improve my writing. He was also uh, he was it's hard to nail him down. I think he's somewhere between an atheist and an agnostic, but we had many spiritual conversations. He was a model of respect of other people's beliefs and open-mindedness and critical thinking. So I learned a lot from him and really value him as a role model. And then here at WPI, there's three guys that I've team taught with, Ken, Brad, and Craig, and they're three very different guys, but they serve as excellent role models in so many ways. Ken is a guy with so much energy, and he really can connect with students and get them excited about the material, and really interacts well with the students. So he's a role model in that way. Craig is very detail oriented, explains things very clearly. Uh, and Brad is, I think of him as the Bon Jovi of software. He's very entertaining. He's very good at getting to the point, right, in class and outside of class as well, in terms of identifying what are the important things that need to be discussed about some issue, or how do we get to a solution quickly. And likes to do demos, so uh, he likes to explain concepts and get to the point and then do some demos. So these are professional role models that really help me. And relational role models, I think about, well, first of all, my wife, who is an excellent role model to me and to others as a person who's very sensitive and caring. Uh, we've had when someone's sick, or we had a friend who recently lost a spouse, but she's a RN, so she was very tried to be helpful guiding them in medical decisions and helping in other ways and sending notes, preparing meals. She does this for people all the time. So in terms of being sensitive and supportive of people and putting her love for people into action, she's a great role model. And I think about the pastor of the church we go to at Grace Presbyterian here in Worcester. Uh, he's a great teacher and preacher, but one way that he really serves as a wonderful role model is as a father and a husband. He always treats his wife and children with kindness and respect, whether he's speaking to them directly or talking about them with somebody else. And his wife is a great role model as a pastor's wife. She's very involved. She's wholeheartedly bought into the ministry. They have, a common vision, common goals, and they're a real team. So I think they're great role models for other husbands and wives in the church. And then spiritual role models. I've had many friends who have served as great role models of in terms of discipline, spending regular time reading the Bible in prayer, being involved in serving, reaching out to people, serving as elders, teaching Sunday school, being involved with youth group, just so many great role models. So that they're very helpful. They have been very helpful in my life. Now, I mentioned that I thought that familiarity, proximity, and authenticity was important in a role model. And but I think it's the familiarity and proximity can also come just from reading about someone's life, or in the case of many role models, there are many role models in the Bible. So just really studying the Bible in a very deliberate and intense way and getting to know the people there's many that can serve as excellent role models. And I remember watching a Ken Burns documentary on Lewis and Clark, and they had some different historians that they talk with regularly during that documentary. And there was one historian in particular who obviously was very intensely involved in his study of Lewis and Clark. And when it got to the point, so unfortunately, I think it was about 4 years after they came back from their trip, Meriwether Lewis committed suicide. And this historian was in tears when he talked about this. I mean, he had such a connection just because of his intense study of his life and reading all his letters. And it also reminded me of there's a guy that I heard speak once who was he was a leader in a prison ministry, and he himself had been a felon in prison, and before he became a Christian, and some Christians had given him a Bible, and of course he didn't have much to do being in prison, so he started reading the Bible. And he read it over and over again. And then, especially in going through the Gospels over and over again, he got to know who Jesus was, and he fell in love with Jesus, and he became a Christian. So I think it's really important to study when you study the Bible, to consider the different people's lives, because you can learn a lot about them and how they lived. There's a lot of stories of mistakes that they made too, but you can learn about the good things that they did and get good advice as well. Anyways, as I said, there are many great examples, role models from the Bible, and in this set of videos, I'm not going to go into all of them, or that would take. I'll probably add some later on, I guess. But for instance, in Genesis 24, there's a story about Abraham and how he sent his servant to find a wife for Isaac. and of course the servant goes, and it's a great story. I mean, there's a lot of stories in the Old Testament about things that when things go wrong and people make mistakes, and but in this particular story in Genesis 24, everybody does what they're supposed to do. Things go really well, and Abraham gets a godly daughter for a godly daughter-in-law. Isaac gets a wife, but I think the servant gets to serve God. And his story, if you read Genesis 24, he's just a model of devotion both to Abraham and more importantly to God. And just so that's a great story. Maybe I'll talk about that in a later video. But we're going to be looking at two people in particular right now. One is Job, and the other is the Apostle Paul. But before we start with them, we'll just talk about just a little bit about the ultimate role model, of course, who is Jesus himself. And Jesus not only taught, he lived out the things that he taught, such as being a servant, right? This from John 14. Shortly before he went to the cross, he washed the feet of the disciples and told them that they should wash one another's feet, right? In other words, he said that if you want to be great in God's kingdom, you need to be a servant of all. So he also said that greater love hath no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends. And Jesus did that, right? He urged them to pray. He talks about the persistent widow and the importance of praying both on your own individually and also getting together with others to pray. And then it says that he often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. So he was very consistent in both what he said and then demonstrating that, living that out. And of course, and again, the importance of role model. Paul says, "Follow my example as I follow the example of Christ," and join together in following my example, brothers and sisters, just as you have us as a model. Keep your eyes on those who live as we do. So again, this just emphasizes the importance of having role models and being a role model. So I think I'm going to stop this video here, and I'll pick up with the next video, and we'll start talking about Job.